Hey folks, welcome to Watchbots Prime. It's Ben. It's a weird time, guys, in the world. Everything feels weird with this coronavirus thing. Just in the last day, the NCAA basketball tournaments, it's been announced that they're going to run still, but they're going to run in empty arenas, which seems bizarre. An XFL game is going to be played inside an empty field. WrestleMania might get canceled, which makes sense, but it's just, everything is weird. I spent the last 2 days at work inside a sweltering conference room with a bunch of people, and objectively, I know that things will be okay. I am in generally good health. Thankfully, my family is in generally good health, but as I sat in that room, anytime somebody coughed, I just convinced myself, like, this is it. I'm fucked. We're finished. I don't know what's going to happen. Then the next few weeks are going to be weird, wild times. They say in times of crisis, laughter is truly the best medicine. But unfortunately, you're listening to this show and think about the life choices that have led us to this moment. Anyway, another momentous thing happened this week, and that is the end of Peter's journey to find love on The Bachelor. And all season long, it's been teased that this will be the craziest season ever, and nobody knows how it's going to end. And I guess that ended up being true, but what happened was 2 nights of dumpster fire television, and I loved every single second of it. So to reset the scene for you, Peter is down to his final 2, right? So you got Hannah Ann, who is a model, and she seems fine. Right? She's very attractive. She seems nice. She seems to like Peter a lot. And then you have Madison, who is a virgin. She's very into God, where Peter is not. Peter is a big party guy. And you can tell that Peter really prefers Madison, but it's not clear why, because they don't seem to have anything in common. Maybe she's some kind of unicorn to him. I don't know. It's a weird thing. So the first episode, because there was one Monday and one Tuesday, of course, starts with them in Australia, and they're going to meet Peter's family. His mom, his dad, and his brother, who have all flown in from California. Now, when Peter was on The Bachelorette, his family was seen as really cool, fun-loving people. You know, they loved their son. They really loved The Bachelorette. Just a great, big, happy family. Put a pin in that, because I think America's perception on these folks has changed recently. They meet Hannah Ann first, and they love her. When I meet people for the first time, I generally will hate your fucking guts. And that carries through to 95% of people pretty much eternally. But these people just, they love Hannah Ann. They're talking to her, and she leaves, and the mom is like, she's an angel sent from heaven. Do the right thing. Really weird. Fucking crazy. And then Peter is going to bring Madison to meet them. But as you might recall, Madison had told Peter that she wouldn't really like it if he slept with any of the other women, which he then promptly did. And they had this big heartfelt conversation. She doesn't know what to do. He's telling her he doesn't want her to leave. They're touching foreheads, which is not safe in the current atmosphere. But eventually she decides to come and meet the family. And she goes in, and boy, it just does not go well for anybody. The mom, Barb, clearly hates her because Peter is very open about his sexuality and has also told his whole family that he poked the other 2 girls, and that Madison is not into that she's a virgin. And they're all like, well, Peter's a spiritual guy, but he's not really a religious guy. And the mom is grilling her, and Peter's brother takes him outside and is basically like, dude, you love to fuck. He doesn't say that, but you know, he kind of says it. And they just don't like Madison at all. And Madison leaves. Had a hard day. And then his whole family is like, you should really marry Hannah Ann. And then Barb is sobbing. She's like, bring her home to us. And it just, I don't know how you made this emotional connection so quickly. She really emotionally manipulated the whole situation because Peter puts a lot of stock into what his family thinks, which imagine that. So now we're on to dates. So Peter and Madison take a helicopter ride, right? And they go over what he calls a spiritual rock, or the rock is spiritual. Like, I think he was trying to appeal to her religious side, but they land. So they took this helicopter ride in the middle of fucking Australia. Now they're just in a field or whatever. The Mesa? What are they? Oh, the Outback. Boy, that took a long time to get there. And she basically says, I think we're at different spots in our life, and, you know, I just don't think this is going to work. And he tries to get her to stay, but she's made her mind up, and she has rational reasons for doing so. So he's very sad. She gets in a car and leaves. She has left the show. He presumably takes the helicopter back. I don't know. We didn't see the sad helicopter ride, but what can you do? Now there's only one woman left, Hannah Ann. And he goes on a date with her. And it's not a normal situation, but I think the normal thing to do would be to tell her that Madison left. He does not. Doesn't tell her at all. What he does do is, as she's telling him how much she loves him, he tells her that his heart is being torn apart and he's torn in two directions. And then she gets really upset. Like, this guy's a fucking numbnuts. Now we're at the last day. Basically, he has to pick a winner. Well, there's only one woman left. So what do you do? And that's where Monday night left off. God, I still have Tuesday to talk through. I got a lot going on here. Tuesday's episode opens. Peter has decided he's talked himself into being in love with Hannah Ann, right? She's a good soul. She loves him. Just overnight, like he's given up on Madison. It's fucking weird. He gets an engagement ring. He goes to the final rose ceremony. Hannah Ann shows up. He takes her by the hand and he's like, oh man, you look really gorgeous. He doesn't talk as cool as I do. And then he goes, so Madison. And then he tells her that Madison left. And then he tells her he loves her and proposes to her. And she has this look of incredulity on her face. And I obviously can't blame her because it was the most awkward way to propose marriage. But she is happy that he loves her, I guess, and accepts. You see them and they seem to be very, very, very happy. Tuesday also had a lot of cutting back and forth between a live studio audience with the host. And then Peter comes out on stage. And then immediately after this, immediately after you've seen the happy couple, we cut to some indeterminate time later. And it's the two of them together. They haven't seen each other in a month. And Peter is breaking up with her because he can't give her his heart. And mind you, this is his fiancée. And he gives her like the flimsiest reasons. Like, I can't give you my heart. I'm still working through feelings. And she rightfully basically tells this asshole to go fuck himself, that he took away her first engagement. If he had been honest and had been a man, that he still had feelings. You know, he should have just let her go, but basically he was just being a selfish prick. And she tells him to fuck off. And then she comes out on stage and lays into this guy on television, and Peter's parents are there, so including Barb. And Barb this whole time is just applauding and basically like, you go girl. And, you know, applauding along with an audience of millions while her son gets eviscerated on television. And every time they show more of the breakup, there's like this tight pan in on Barb's face. It's fucking crazy. And it got to the point where I was having trouble watching, but then it gets even weirder because the host of the show goes to visit Madison again, just months later. And he's like, I just wanted you to know, Hannah Ann and Peter, they didn't make it. He broke it off with her because he has feelings for you. And then Madison goes to visit Peter, and then we cut back and they bring Madison out. So it's like Jerry Springer almost, or a Montel, whatever you like. I like Sally Jesse Raphael. And now Peter and Madison are on stage together and they're talking to the host, and they keep cutting to Barb, and Barb looks fucking pissed. She looks mortified. The host calls this out, and the next 10 to 15 minutes of television are Barb, who's sitting in the audience, basically laying into Madison and her son. And she tells this really long-winded story, much like the long-winded story I'm telling you, about Madison making them wait for 3 hours in Australia and never apologizing and not being in love with her son. And he has to fail to succeed. And again, Peter, being the fucking sad schmo that he is just sitting there getting eviscerated by his mom. And Madison not really deflecting any of this, just sort of taking it all on board. And they left it with, what will Peter and Madison do next? I don't know. And that's the end of the season. And it was truly bizarre to watch. I think The Bachelor is not a show where you're really expecting like a fairy tale ending at this point, but it ended in just the most classless, trashiest way possible. And in these trying times, America, this is what we need. Or the world. I don't know if the world watches The Bachelor, but it helped America out. Made me feel better. On to the real show where we talk about cartoons. Last week we talked about Garfield and his friends, and I was inspired by a different cat, a decidedly inferior cat. So we're going to talk about Heathcliff.
Heathcliff, no one should terrify their neighborhood, but Heathcliff just won't be undone, playing pranks on everyone. There's a race to be on top, the competition doesn't stop, mixing with the ladies fair, being charming debonair.
Heathcliff is another Deke show, and even as a child, I was convinced that Heathcliff was French. He's not French. He's just not funny or interesting. But there's a fascination around Heathcliff that I think we can get into, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with Heathcliff, I can say that. But the episode we watched involves Heathcliff meeting his snooty cousin, and also his pals, the Cadillac Cats, going to the amusement park. And won't that be a treat, folks? I think it will be. We'll also play a game, as we do. It's a game that I'm very excited about, which means it will be an unfettered disaster, but that's life. That's life. What can you do? I think I've gone on for quite long enough. If anybody's listening at this point, I would be honored and shocked. Equally, I guess. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great week. And for God's sake, wash your hands. It's not that hard.